Imagine if we travel tomorrow, we could start like this. At departure, it could look like this. And at destination, it could be like this. We could still do this. Or simply this. It might seem a bit more complicated than before, but trust us, it could also be easy. Because traveling safe does not mean enjoy less. It means enjoy, respect.
Hello everyone, sveiki visi. Now it's 10 o'clock, so we should start. Let me welcome you here for this workshop, and thank you for everyone who was involved by organizing this event. Also, thank you for everyone who are participating. Thanks for our lectors. I believe that you will have a very intense workshop because people are very anxious to get new things, to know new things. And as we do understand that we are in this uncertain situation for nearly 2 years, and what we know, that we still do not know all the answers for the future. Maybe we only think that we definitely understand that we should come back from this situation stronger, smarter, and this is why we as a Ministry of Economics and Innovation, this is why we are trying to invest and organize such events to help people to be in shape, also to help everyone with new ideas and other things. So I will try to keep my introduction short because today is not about politicians. Today is about our tourism managers. So I will give the floor to, as I understand, Mr. Stefan Hartmann will be the next. Yeah. So the floor is yours. I wish you a very interesting day, and I hope that we will get a very good feedback after the event. And I am looking forward for all the participants to share insights. What did you like? what didn't you like, or how we should improve for the future. Because for all of us, it's very important to have this open cooperation, to be colleagues, friends in this room, and to work together. So, Stefan, the floor is yours, and thanks everyone, and thank you, Lydia, for this event.
All right, thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Stefan Hartman. I'm head of department at the European Tourism Futures Institute, and I'm here with my colleague Bernadette Pap. Actually, Bernadette is going to take the first lead in this presentation. She will guide you through the steps that we will take today. She will hand the word over to me at a later stage.
That's right. Thank you very much, Stefan, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. It's our honor and pleasure to be joining you today and to be working together on a very important topic. Before we would introduce the aim of today's workshop and the structure that we will be following throughout the next approximately 3 hours, please just allow me to introduce very briefly our institute, the European Tourism Futures Institute. We are based in Leeuwarden, all the way in the north in the Netherlands. We are a research institute at the Academy of Leisure and Tourism at NHS and the University of Applied Sciences. We are specialists in scenario planning and strategic foresight in the field of travel and tourism. But of course, it's not our only expertise. We work on a range of projects with a variety of stakeholders. And amongst those stakeholders are also tourist information centers. Across the Netherlands, we have collaborated in the past 2 years with the knowledge network of Dutch DMOs, but also beyond, across Europe. We've been working with the TIC expert group of European cities marketing. And of course, we've gathered a lot of knowledge and a lot of insights about the way TICs operate and also the way they can innovate and how they see the future. And we are very excited to share this knowledge with you today. But not only that, we are also interested to learn about the context in Lithuania, because as we heard, it's rather unique. So we hope that together we will generate knowledge also about the TICs in Lithuania. My name is Bernadette Pap. I'm a senior researcher at the European Tourism Futures Institute, and today we will be guiding you through the workshop together with Stefan. We hope to make this a very interactive workshop, so please later on feel free to speak up at any moment you like, turn on your cameras. We will be working with MURAL, which is a platform for collaborative thinking. So we hope that you are just as excited as we are to work together. So if you give me just 1 second, I will share my screen with you. So let's take a quick look at the aim of today's workshop. Why is it that we're here this morning? Well, first of all, we would like to talk you through a set of 4 post-COVID-19 scenarios that have been created together with the Center of Expertise in Leisure, Tourism and Hospitality and our very own institute. We will introduce not only the scenarios, but we would also like to talk a little bit about trends and developments that have been accelerated by the pandemic. And we would like to look at the implications these trends and developments hold for the tourist information centers themselves. Afterwards, we're going to brainstorm together about strategic actions that TICs can take to become resilient and also future-proof in view of the scenarios and in view of the emerging trends and developments. And we're going to use what we call the Future TIC Framework, which looks at 5 different areas where innovation can take place. Through this process, what we hope to achieve is to generate input and also inspiration for your own strategic planning processes. And by that, to make your organization a lot more resilient, a lot more future-proof. We will not only look at the TICs themselves and the future of TICs, but we would also like to explore what the role of other stakeholders could be to implement the strategic actions that we will together create. And amongst those stakeholders, of course, there would be also a possible newly established DMO. And we would like to just explore what tasks and responsibilities could be delegated to a potential new DMO. So through this collaborative thinking process, overall what we hope to achieve is to help you extend your strategic frame, to help you adopt new ways of thinking, to help you think in terms of alternatives, to broaden your horizons, so to say. So how are we going to do this? We have planned a 3-hour workshop for this morning, as you know. We would like to start with a short presentation. We will talk you through the scenarios. As far as I know, you have all received the scenario study, so maybe you have had some time already to scan the scenarios. Then we're going to look at some trends and developments that are impacting upon the operations of TICs. Then we will introduce the framework itself with the 5 key areas of innovation. And finally, we will make some critical remarks about the destination management organization or destination marketing organization, as you wish, and we will look at what are the key responsibilities and what are the main tasks DMOs normally take on. This will take us approximately 30 minutes, and following that, we will move to MURAL, which is going to be our collaborative platform for this morning. First, we will spend approximately 40 minutes discussing, brainstorming about strategic actions that TICs themselves can take. Then we will have a little bit of a break because the thinking process can be quite exhaustive. Afterwards, we will return and we will continue with the second part of our workshop, where we will look at the roles and responsibilities of other stakeholders, including a possible DMO as well. We will close the session with a plenary discussion. We would like to gather your reflections as well on the process and the main outcomes of the session. I also must mention that following the session, you will receive an output report with all the information that was shared in the session and the outcomes of the collaborative work. So you will have all the information following the workshop. So that's very much it concerning the aim and the structure of the workshop. Without any further ado, I would like to give the word back to Stefan, and he's going to talk to you about the scenarios first, and then we will continue.
Right, thank you very much. I already shared a link in the chat that you can follow directly to the MURAL platform in case you did not click a link in the invitation that you received. I think it's a direct link. I see that many of you found your way to the platform already, so that's great. Yeah, it's my pleasure to take you along a sort of a journey, because of course we know that tourism and thinking about tourism development and thinking about tourism management is it's dynamic, it's changing constantly, and I think we are departing, so to say, a paradigm where we focused very much on growth only, so more tourists, more turnover, more overnight stays. It's still, of course, very relevant, but we include much more other interests and much more other goals related to society, to the environment. And we know that we talk about responsible destinations, we talk about resilient destinations, kind of as a new way to think about how do we manage tourism and how do we manage the development of tourism destinations, which is more of a more sustainable approach to development. And I think this is something that is really important to take as a background, because it's also quite challenging. More and more interests are involved, more and more stakeholders are involved. We need to coordinate things better. We have to do much more strategic thinking. It's not only an economic activity, a lot of other policy domains involved. So actually, we make our lives very complicated. We can go to the next slide. Of course, talking about complexity and complicated life, COVID-19 made it, I think, very challenging for all of us. The industry suffered, of course, great losses and needed to be resilient, to deal with this really unforeseen and unexpected crisis situation. And it challenges us. It challenges us in multiple ways, on a business level, but also on a destination level, and also on the level of thinking about tourism and thinking about recovery, and thinking about how do we build back the industry when in a post-COVID world. And if you look at how do destinations perform over time, an example that we took from the city of Amsterdam, they monitor very closely the overnight stays in hotels, for instance. And if we look at the graph on the screen right now, it's about the hotel occupancy. If you look on the left-hand side, you see the old situation. There was no COVID, and you can directly see the impact of COVID. I mean, the occupancy rate drops to an all-time low of 10% in the city, which is, well, a world-known tourism destination. And at the same time, you can see already the increase when the measures, the lockdown was kind of released. So we immediately see an increase of tourists again. And you see at the autumn, in the end of on the right-hand side of the graph, when we went into the second lockdown in the Netherlands, again, we saw this drop. And at the same time, we see that when the measures were eased a bit, it increased a bit. So for us, it's not a question whether tourism, whether it will recover or if it will recover. It's a question, when will it? And also a question, what we looked at is how will it recover? And that's on the next slide. We did a scenario study to think about the impacts of COVID and try to map the future of the tourism industry in a post-COVID world. What could be the outcomes, and what could be, of course, the main aspects that could influence the future of tourism? So we did a full analysis, and we tried to get a relatively simple framework to make sense of the industry. And this is the framework that we created. On the one hand, we looked at the crisis. So will it be very short, and will the impact be relatively mild? Or will it be very long, and will the impact be dramatic? Then we can map different futures. And what will consumers do? Will they kind of stay the same in their behavior? Will they focus on fulfilling their own needs, or will they take into account also other needs of other people, host communities, etc.? So we created this framework and tried to map out different futures. And if you look at the scenario on the top left, it's called business as usual, where we focus on kind of a short crisis. We don't expect too much changes in consumer behavior. Then basically we have a crisis with an impact, and it recovers kind of as we know the industry. Not big differences, no fundamental changes whatsoever. But if you look at, I think what we've seen in many countries was actually the scenario on the top right-hand side, the survival of the fittest. Some subsectors of our industry even collapsed, had a real hard time. We tried to compete and to get the little number of tourists. So we had to focus on specific target groups in order to basically to make a living. And everything you could get is great because it allowed you to survive and to get to the next season. Something we also saw during COVID, that we saw that different operators, different private sector stakeholders took a completely different approach to tourism. And that's on the bottom left-hand side, the responsible tourism. So focusing on local target groups. So instead of focusing on, for instance, the inbound tourists, focus on their own visitors, or their own inhabitants. And to think about, okay, but how can we actually make use of the industry in order to make places better? It happened on a small scale. if you look at the scenario on the bottom right-hand side, business as unusual, we imagine a scenario where the industry fundamentally changed. It's not business as usual, it's business as unusual. Basically, a transition of the whole industry, a reinvention of the industry, where it's very much about value and about contributing value to the host destination, contributing value to the host communities. And it's not only about the economic gains of the business, it's about making the destinations better and better over time. And many stakeholders benefit from this. And that's a situation, I think we talk about this, we talk about build back better. There's a lot of ideas about destination stewardship, things that we can try to imagine how to get there. But of course, also our industry is, we have a routine, we have an interest, also to go back to business as usual. That's the scenario that we know. So this is a framework. It's not about saying what should be done, what is right or what is wrong. We imagine this as a variety of outcomes. And I think if you look at the one on business as usual on the one hand side and business as unusual on the other hand, that we have a big tension here. So do we want to recover? Basically, we'll go back to 2 years ago. Or do we also take this crisis situation as an opportunity to rethink our industry in total, in general, and think about what does it mean for DMOs? What does it mean for TICs? What does it mean for the private sector? What does it mean for the public sector? And then try to think about, okay, but who's going to take responsibility? Well, this is a framework that I think hopefully also inspires you a bit, that we can make decisions and we can try to prepare for a future that I think will be coming. If you can move to the next slide, I think this is our strategic challenge. Do we kind of stay the same? Do we bounce back? Do we focus on recovery and business as usual? Or also, are we able to move forward? And are we able to to go to the scenario of business as unusual? If you go to then the next slide, I think this is up to the tourism industry. At the same time, it's also driven by the big forces in society. And if you take the time to read this quote from the CEO of Amsterdam and Partners, it's the destination marketing organization of the city of Amsterdam, they actually acknowledge that they reached this tipping point, that it's they need to rethink tourism. They need to rethink the goals and aims of the industry and the contribution of the industry to the destination. They say, well, we need to rethink. We need to do things differently. We need to redefine ourselves. And I think this is very, very interesting, that this is maybe also part of the new normal, that we take a more strategic approach to tourism and destination development and destination management. I think this is what we will look at. So if you go to the next slide, it's over to Bernadette, and I will come back later to you about the role of DMOs.
Thank you, Stefan. Well, as Stefan has mentioned as well, there are a lot of forces that are shaping the environment, the business environment as well that we work in. And what we witnessed in the past 2 years is that many of the trends and developments that have been on the radar for quite some time now have actually been accelerated by the pandemic. And so we have picked out a few trends that are interesting to discuss in relation to the TIC. The first one, global sustainability requirements. Of course, we have reversed into a so-called zero state in the past few years, with very limited movement for a long amount of time. Technically, travel and tourism came to a stop. And so what that allowed us to do was to measure the impacts of tourism much more accurately. And of course, this has revealed quite a few negative impacts that travel and tourism has, not only on the natural environment, but also the social environment, for instance. So travel and tourism, again, came under the radar and into the spotlight when it comes to sustainability. And we could really witness rising awareness in terms of sustainability, and a lot of actions and initiatives have been taken by the industry to tackle these issues. And of course, it raises the question in terms of what does it mean for the operation of the TIC? The TIC is a key member of the tourism value chain, and it's also a very important contact moment in the customer journey. So we believe that, of course, implies quite some responsibilities for the TIC in terms of helping this shift towards a much more sustainable travel and tourism industry. And this is very closely linked to the second trend, shifting definition of success. Of course, for the past years, the industry has been eager to redefine success, to use new KPIs other than simply looking at economic metrics, as Stefan has mentioned as well before. So this is a shift from volume to value, from quantity to quality. So the question, of course, is what role can TICs play in this shift, and how can they enhance or foster this shift towards a more sustainable industry? Then placemaking is a really interesting one. Of course, TICs are often strategically positioned in touristic hotspots. They are often located in very central areas. So in that sense, they can positively influence placemaking efforts, such as fostering sense of place, contributing to the vibrancy of the place, contributing to the livability of the place. But I could also mention, creating a shared space between visitors and residents. And of course, guiding and influencing the itinerary of visitors within a specific destination. So TICs can be very powerful in terms of placemaking efforts and in terms of influencing the way the place itself is used by the visitors. Then trend number 4, enabling technologies. This is an interesting one because it's both a threat and an opportunity. Of course, we live in a digital era when everybody technically has all the information in their pockets on their smart devices. We have seen it in the Netherlands various times that TICs closed down because the information search behavior of the visitors changed dramatically, I would say. We rely much more on user-generated content. We rely much more on our own skills and ability to find information. So we've seen a downward trend in terms of visiting the actual physical TIC. And there's really a threat of losing human touch and human interaction, which is essentially the core of the TIC. But of course, technologies can also help TICs to improve their services. Artificial intelligence or virtual reality or using augmented reality can not only facilitate information provision, but it can also help you to provide really immersive sensory experiences at the TIC to inspire and motivate your visitors and, you know, to transmit what we call in the Netherlands the destination DNA. Trend number 5, shared responsibility, accountability, transparency. And trend number 6, destinations as common pool resources. These two are very closely related. Of course, our industry is very resource intensive. Our visitors can cause overcrowding, can overuse resources, whether it's the infrastructure or water, or, you know, we can also talk about issues with waste management. So there are a range of aspects that require collective action from the entire industry. And as I mentioned, TICs are very, very valuable member of the tourism value chain and the key contact moment in the customer journey. So this again raises some questions on how can TICs contribute better, more efficiently towards the protection of destination resources, towards the protection of the livability as well as the quality of the destination. And the last trend I would like to point out is the rising call for social inclusion. This is also very interesting. Here we refer both to equal opportunities at the workplace and also equal opportunities for both residents and visitors to enjoy what the destination has to offer. Now, when we look at TICs, based on our experiences, TICs often employ youth, youngsters. They are most of the time local. They have very good knowledge about the destination. They have firsthand knowledge of the destination. And so TICs can very significantly contribute to the employment of youth, which is often a very significant issue when we look at employment in general. So TICs can play a very important role here. And also, of course, when we talk about the shared space between residents and visitors, I will show you on the next slide how some of the destinations create this shared space for both user groups. But of course, when we look at these trends and we look at the scenarios that Stefan introduced, the question arises, how can TIC succeed under such conditions with rising responsibilities, increasing impacts of the industry and the need to manage these impacts? So there is a significant challenge here that we would like to address today. But like I said, some TICs have been on this path, evolutionary path, that we have mapped in this graph that you can see on the slide. Of course, TICs come in different shapes and different sizes. They have different capacities, both in terms of finances and human resources. But what we have experienced throughout Europe is that some of them have been on this journey to reinvent themselves, to make sure that they stay relevant in a changing a visitor economy. So what you can see is the tourist information point would be the smallest unit, I would say, focusing solely on information provision. Then the next step would be a more comprehensive tourist information center or visitor center, but still the focus is on information provision. Then one level up, we have seen a few examples of so-called experience centers or inspiration centers, whereby they go beyond information provision and focus more on inspiring visitors, motivating visitors, introducing the destination DNA, the core essence of the destination, to the visitor. So this is a combination of information provision and other services that they offer at the TIC. Then we have also seen examples where they combined the TIC with a community center. So really responding to the need for shared experiences between residents and visitors. And there are also a few examples of TICs where they decided to focus on a niche segment in the community, which is the expats, because expats often have very similar needs to first-time visitors. They are also new to the destination. They have the same or similar information needs. So why not combine the tourist info and also provide space for these expats in the community? So this is just an interesting graph on how TICs respond across Europe to trends and developments and the changing environment, ensure that they stay relevant, that they can continue operating successfully. This is the future TIC framework, which we mentioned earlier. So when we talk about innovation, we have identified 5 key domains where innovation can take place at the TIC. You can see the 5 domains like technology, visitor experience, collaboration, data collection, and the visibility of the TIC. And underneath each domain, you can see a few examples of what we mean here and what are the aspects the TIC can consider in case they want to innovate. Of course, you need to take into consideration the capacities, the resources the TIC has, the size of the TIC. So when we talk about the framework, we always advise to choose the focal point, choose the focus area, whether it's data collection or technological innovations, and pick out a few key areas where you believe innovation is needed for your specific TIC. So the second strategic challenge, of course, considering the innovation framework, considering the trends and developments, and considering the scenarios, is what strategies can help TICs to become more resilient and prepared for multiple future scenarios. And then the other question arises, what role could DMOs play in this process? And before we move to the interactive workshop, Stefan will tell you a little bit more about the DMO, their responsibilities, the tasks, their activities, so that we can more efficiently discuss later on what the role of the DMO could be.
Yes, indeed. I think it's important to take into account the evolution of the TICs that Bernadette just introduced. Because of course, next to information provision and the evolution that we see there, we also have the destination marketing organization, which typically is responsible to get visitors from outside of the destination towards the destination, basically by means of the very basic core functions of branding, promotion, marketing of places or sites or activities, in order to present a place as a destination for travel, basically to get tourists in. Of course, we see also an evolution here within the DMO and their responsibilities. And if we look at the two graphics that we included here, this is a survey done by Group Now under, I think it's about 67 DMOs, to identify what are your core functions. And many of them are city marketing organizations. Some of them do activities as a convention bureau. Also, some are responsible for tourist information centers. You see a double function, of course. We also see that some of them consider themselves tourism research and data centers, that they're responsible also for development and innovation, which goes beyond marketing and promotion already. But they also focus on sustainability nowadays. It's the percentage is slightly less. But you see that also DMOs will take on board new activities because they believe it's relevant to do so in order to make a sustainable product offer for the tourists. And the point is, it goes beyond information, marketing, and communication. It's also more and more about strategic product development. And also, if we look at how DMOs do this, I think it's also important to know that there's not one recipe to develop a DMO. Often it's publicly funded, so by the public sector, but also it's often co-funded by private sector, sometimes even fully funded by private sector, or it's a public-private partnership where different stakeholders believe that they are co-responsible for the development of a destination, basically join their resources and have a common stake in the development of the destination. But I think important to know that the DMO is then responsible to get tourists towards the destination. And of course, the TIC has a role when tourists are at the place itself. But also in the world of DMOs, there's an evolution taking place. Many DMOs say, we are not a destination marketing organization, we are a destination management organization. So instead of focusing only on branding and promotion, sending out information to the public, it's also management. It's also, but what do we want people to do? What do we want people to experience? Do we have the right experiences in place? Shouldn't we address that? Should we not develop that product in line with the type of tourist that we want? The culture tourist or the quality tourist or whatever you call it, but you need to take action in order to get the desired target group. Sometimes it doesn't happen automatically. And I think the next step that we see, as an example, the city of Amsterdam I just mentioned, it's about destination development. It's not only to take into account the interest of the visitor and the industry, but also the residents, and also the interest of the ecology or heritage. And I think this is then also, again, life becomes more complicated. We take on board more policy domains. I think the next step is that what we see, particularly near protected areas, for instance, that we think about is destination stewardship. Are we able to really take care of places, and are we able to invest and make use of the tourism industry, or to enhance the sense of place, or to enhance the place identity, basically for all stakeholders involved, not only the visitor, not only the business, but also the inhabitants, in order to basically make use of the tourism industry as an investment in the well-being of the people. This is something that we see. Of course, there are good examples, but this is not very widespread. I think most DMOs are focusing on marketing, moving towards management, and some of them focus on this development perspective. But this is something we'd like to share with you, that that tourism management and the destination development becomes more and more strategic, more and more complex. And then it's a big question, who's going to do what? And do we have the right organizations in place? And do we have the right task allocation in place? Because of course, there is a reason why there's a DMO, and there's a reason why we have TSC. But they should complement. They can very well complement each other if the tasks are very clear. This is something I think is relevant to share with you, because this development might affect also how you design and how you operate a TSC. I think this is the inputs that we like to give before we go to the workshop part. Yes. Many of you received the link to MURAL, and let me check. Not everybody is in the MURAL environment yet. If you open the chat, I provided the link to the MURAL environment. If you go to the chat and press the link, your browser will open and you will be directed to MURAL. So please look at that. Please try to log into MURAL. They ask to fill out your email address or your name. If you do so, you will enter the environment of MURAL. I already see a lot of activity there, so that's great. Now what I will do is to briefly share my screen. And I think now you can see my screen. If I'm Bernadette, can you confirm, please? Yes. All right. This is the template, the workshop template that we prepared for you. And if you use your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and you can zoom out. Let me explain briefly the main functions of MURAL. It's a great platform, a lot of possibilities, but we'll try to stick to the basics. So if you try to zoom in and zoom out, you can now see that this template becomes a little smaller on my screen. And you can see the overview. On the top, we provided the scenarios, business as usual and business as unusual, just as a reminder, because for us, we believe that this is a evolution or a development that we will see that will take place. If you look at the gray boxes, those are the areas of innovation that Bernadette just explained. And of course, the big question we have to you is, in view of these developments that we've just discussed, what actions should TICs take to become resilient and future-proof? Because there's a lot going on in society, there's a lot going on in tourism. They all have an impact on TICs. But what could be done to take action, to anticipate to what is coming? So what do you believe should be done in the area of technology, in the area of visitor experience, in the area of collaboration, the area of data collection, in the area of visibility. What you can do, and this is the workshop, you can go to these areas of innovation, and you will see a blank column below these areas of innovation. If you use your mouse, if you double click with the left side of your mouse, if you double click, a post-it will appear. And if you start typing, you will see that a text appears automatically. Also, you will probably see the other participants. So you can also see what other participants are typing, and you can see their output. So please experiment with this. Please see if it works. If you have questions, we are here to help. Try to get as much output from your side, your perspectives, your ideas on the mural. We always say this is our memory. If it's on the mural, we remember, and we can take it also to the next steps in the workshop. It requires a bit of experience to do this. At the same time, it's very user-friendly. If you look at the very left-hand side of the template, you can also see the basic instructions that I've just mentioned. If you need some time to read through this, you can do it.
Right, thank you, Stefan. So let's first focus on the first part of the template, which is indeed what the TICs themselves can do, what actions they can take. As Stefan mentioned, we have the 5 areas of innovation. We do imagine that many of you have different expertise maybe, or you focus on different aspects within the TIC, also depending on the size of your TIC, your own ambitions, objectives. So in that sense, you might be focusing more on technology, or more on improving collaboration, or more on providing really immersive experiences. So what we would suggest is to maybe start from technology, if we can all focus on technology, and start adding some ideas by double clicking on the screen and then typing. And you click into the sticky note, you can type your ideas. The more specific you go, the better, of course. If technology is not an area that your TIC is in particular interested in, feel free to move on to other columns and just add your ideas under any of the headings that you feel that you would like to share your insights. We also ask you to keep Zoom open, because that's how we can communicate with you. And we also invite you to speak up. If you see an idea on the screen that triggers you and you would like to reflect on, please just unmute your microphone. We might also have some questions to you, because as Stefan said, we can see what everybody is doing in the mural. So ideas can be really good conversation starters, and that's what we are aiming at. In terms of timing, we plan to spend approximately 40 minutes on the first part of the template. So before we go on the coffee break, it would be really good to have a great variety of ideas or actions and strategies in the first part of the template. And maybe I can also help you to get started. I can also add some ideas based on the projects that we've done with TICs from other European countries. So when we look at technology, of course, you can also see a few ideas under technology, such as website optimization, using different mobile applications, omni-channel support to provide seamless customer journeys. So the use of augmented reality, virtual reality. So the idea is to add sticky notes and type ideas in the sticky notes that you believe would be important for the future of the TIC. Like, for instance, I'm typing now, you can see my cursor, localizing social media. Localizing social media, what we see in the Netherlands, that many of the visitors come from countries outside of Europe, so Asia, for instance, and we do know that they use different platforms for social media. So localizing social media would actually enable your TIC to reach a wider audience, depending on your source markets, your target group. So this is one strategic action that the TIC could take to improve its reach. I see Stefan typing as well, and I see some ideas coming in other columns as well. So you can take some time to explore how to add the sticky note and how to type. You can also change the font size. And then let's start sharing ideas.
Exactly. So also this is about your input. Your input is leading. I think many of you already know how it works. I see the first post-its appear. There's no right, there's no wrong. You can type anything you believe is relevant in these on these sticky notes. I think we have about 40 people in the mural, while we have 60 in Zoom. So if you have troubles, please let us know. Also use the chat in Zoom, then we can try to help you out.
Looking at the first column, I see some ideas coming in, such as creating mobile applications with touristic routes, with integrated automatic translate function. Very good, very interesting. Of course, what you can also think about is, as I mentioned earlier, technology is both an opportunity and a threat. So how can we exploit the opportunity? But how can we avoid threat? So how can we ensure that the human interaction part, the human touch, which is the essence of the TIC, how can we ensure that that remains an important component, that we protect this aspect of the TIC? I see there is some input being shared under collaboration as well. Very strong cooperation with the private sector, absolutely. What is also interesting in terms of collaboration, and I would be interested in if your TICs are focusing on this aspect, it's collaboration with local producers, local artisans. Do you actually display local products in your TIC? Is there a possibility to promote local entrepreneurs in your TIC? If anybody would like to reflect on this and would like to speak up, that would be wonderful. I would be really interested in knowing whether you actually have the opportunity to put these local entrepreneurs in the spotlight and promote them. Of course, local entrepreneurs would be one very important stakeholder group. And I also see now volunteers, indeed. We have heard from various TICs that they work with elderly, for instance, or they work with youth. But one interesting thread that was shared previously in terms of collaboration with volunteers was, how do you make sure that the volunteers are available when you need them? Can you actually plan ahead and depend on volunteers? And if so, how would you do that? Another interesting aspect in terms of collaboration, just to help get the thinking process going, is working with specific groups within the community. For instance, people with disabilities. Can you involve them in some ways in your activities? Or we mentioned youth, or we mentioned the elderly. Equality, as we discussed earlier, is something that's very much on the radar. And TICs have a lot of opportunities to contribute to this goal, to ensure equality and inclusiveness. Very important. All right, I'm just going to scan quickly what else we have so far. I see some ideas coming up under data collection as well. In terms of data collection, one interesting thing that was shared through European Cities Marketing was, can you actually collaborate across borders? Would it be an idea to have one shared platform amongst TICs across Europe, where you would share information with each other, where you would share best practices with each other? Really a shared database of what destinations have to offer, what observations are made. Is such a platform an option, according to you? Would be interesting to explore, maybe. And try to be bold, try to think out of the box, try to take a future perspective. What is it that you're not doing, but would like to do in the future? If there are any questions, any remarks, please speak up by using your microphone. And we're very happy to engage in conversation. Right, I'm just looking at the first column now. I see a lot of ideas. Yeah, localizing social media, online chat, mobile applications. I'm not sure if anybody shared the real-time information. Integrated is what I'm typing now. So, for instance, applications where visitors can see the waiting time at attractions. I'm not sure if you're using such technology yet. So if so, then it would be interesting to know how it's working and how it's helping you with information provision. Yeah, and I see something really interesting now being typed. Oh, it was just gone. It was about the applications, and I think from Erica, maybe, that there are a lot of applications indeed, and also often when you cross borders or when you just cross from one city to another, you often need to download new applications. You need to familiarize yourself with different platforms to get the information you need or to get around. So would it be an idea to create a centralized platform or app where visitors don't need to constantly sign up and sign up again and subscribe or download, but could easily, seamlessly just travel from one place to another and have access to the information they need? So I really like this remark about the apps, and it's something that we recognize in other destinations as well, and it's something that other TICs mentioned as well. Implement technological solutions outside TIC. Indeed, talking bench, sculptures, interactive objects. Interaction is crucial. We are moving towards the experience economy. or transformation economy, as you like. People are interested in engaging in different ways with the organization, with the TIC. So it's really wonderful to think about ways how we can improve the interaction, enhance the experience that emerges through this interaction. Free experience at home through virtual reality, wonderful. Many destinations now use virtual reality so that people can experience a destination from their home. You know, at some point, I do remember from a session from European Cities Marketing, some TICs questioned whether there is need for physical TIC at all, or should we in the future, you know, focus entirely on online interactions. That's up for debate, of course. I see a lot of ideas coming up in all the columns. It's great to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity. I think that's great. Yeah.
You can also take inspiration from each other's ideas. You can also reflect on it. You can develop the idea further. Looking at data collection. Yeah, I see visitor journey questionnaires, personas, very good, indeed. Origin, profile, reason to visit. I'm wondering if it's something that you're already collecting, or is it something you would like to do or optimize the way you are collecting this information? One interesting aspect that I would like to highlight, I mean, maybe those of you who are not very busy writing can listen. I also don't want to distract you too much. Value co-creation, which is, you see the third aspect under data collection. Many of the TICs still only measure their economic impact. So sales generated through the TIC, referrals that comes through the online platform, for instance, or conversion rates through your online platforms. But interestingly, if we talk about the TIC, there are a lot of TICs that are really not revenue generators. So they don't actually contribute much to the economy because their main function often is information provision or inspiring or simply having this human touch or connection to visitors. Sort of a safe place where visitors can get trustworthy information. But this aspect is not measured a lot. So can you measure the experience value? Can you measure the emotional value that your TIC generates, the social value? Because if you look at the future and if you look at the trends that are listed on the top of this template, as a reminder, you can see that, you know, the aspect of human interaction, the aspect of providing trustworthy information, the aspect of interaction, immersive experiences are actually very, very important. So should we switch or shift towards measuring these social indicators instead of focusing entirely on economic indicators and numbers? That's an interesting question to observe or to discuss, I believe. And it's something I will add right now under data collection. If there are any questions still about how to use MURAL, we are very happy to go through it again, although I see a lot of you being very active on the platform. But any questions, please just unmute your mic and raise the question. Or questions to us maybe, or you would like to discuss a certain idea. Just to still follow up a little bit on the impact and how you can measure the impact of your TIC. It's a very tricky thing, of course. Some aspects I can share with you is, if you give me a moment, some of the indicators, like, do you guys measure employee satisfaction score, for instance? So your employees are extremely important. Your employee is the face of the TIC and the destination itself, right? Often they are the first contact with the visitor. Their knowledge of the destination is absolutely crucial. And they are the ones who represent the destination DNA, which we call, that's how we call it here in the Netherlands. It's technically the values, the beliefs, the identity of the local community. So training your employees, which actually is under column visitor experience. We can talk about training your employees. It's not only their knowledge, but also their soft skills. So learning, how to be patient, learning how to react in certain situations, curiosity, and similar aspects. These soft skills will be more and more important in the future. Then you can also look at net emotional value. If you remain under data collection, you can look at net emotional value. So that would be basically the balance between positive and negative feedback that you would receive from your visitors, and then you can calculate the net emotional value. Back to employee engagement score. Employee engagement score would be another metric that you could measure and again find out how engaged your employees are. To what extent do they contribute to achieving your mission or your vision? Because a satisfied employee may not be 100% committed to achieving your goal. Customer effort score, and that's something I'm going to put here because the customer effort score is very important. What effort do visitors need to make to find your TIC? And that has to do with the visibility, right? Do you have a strategic location in your destination? Is it easy to find the physical TIC? Signage. Are there sufficient signage across the destination to guide your visitors to the TIC? Also online presence. Can they find you online? Can they find the information they need easily? So do you actually understand the process of how visitors or how much effort they need to take to get the information they need? And there are, of course, some other metrics or KPIs that you can look at, such as social return on investment, right? So for instance, you're working with local producers to showcase local products at the TIC, or you are working with volunteers from the local community. You work with elderly to give them some purpose, make them belong to a community, strengthen their sense of belonging. So what is actually the social return on your investment in terms of bringing these people together? It's also very important to understand because this is the way to showcase the importance of the TIC in today's digital world. Right, I've been talking a lot. I'm going to take a quick look at what's on the template. Maybe Stefan, you have some impressions as well.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I think there are a couple of very interesting parts, especially if I look at a data collection, for instance. I think visitor journey mapping. I think that's something that many TICs, but also DMOs are interested in, to get impressions, to get perspectives from the visitors, like the real feedback on from service quality of the TIC, to feedback on the experience, to get improvement points. And I think that's something very concrete, something you can do relatively easily, maybe even in collaboration with local universities or applied sciences or colleges to design such systems. But you get first-hand feedback from visitors, which is helpful information to make improvements on the other areas of innovation. I think that's really really nice, and there's a lot of experience. And I think somewhere else I saw collaboration, mentioning regular meetings of regional TICs, maybe also internationally. That's where we have the European Cities Marketing Organization for. I think that's where you meet your peers, your colleagues, which probably have the same struggles, but maybe also at some point have the answers. And I think that's something most of you probably struggle with time. Do you yourself make the innovation, or do you learn from the others that already spent a lot of time and energy on designing those ideas and innovations and are actually happy to share? Because probably if they share their learnings, they will get later on, somewhere in the future, the learnings they can get from you. I think that's something that we that we see. But I think the struggle of how do you deal with this limited time, that's always challenging. And maybe that's also something to think about if you talk about collaboration. So are there any particular partners that you can make use of that you do not need to fund, but that have their own funding? Like, just think about universities or innovation incubators or startups that actually have very good ideas and that look for a place to experiment. Maybe that's something you can actually make use of, or funding in the real domain of technology. You can actually make use of to improve the visitor experience in your TIC. Sometimes it helps to step out of your normal policy domain and to become visible. Maybe that's part of the visibility, to become visible in other policy domains and make sure that, well, this is something you could also look at.
Right. In the meantime, I'm just trying to organize a little bit the platform, because it's wonderful to see that there are so many ideas being shared. Right. Just looking at data collection at the moment, capacity limits, visitor surveys, measuring service quality. Absolutely. Heat maps. Absolutely, can be very, very useful. Of course, ideally building on real-time data and real-time information. Analysis of the customer journey. We also have the customer effort score, which can be a very good metric in terms of looking at the customer journey. You want your visitors to find you and find the information the most efficient way possible. Again, back to the trend of digitalization. We live in a digital era, so often people would be looking for the least effort possible and just type their question into Google, so to say. So we really need to emphasize that the value of the TIC, on the one hand, is the trustworthy information that they provide, the hyper-local knowledge that TICs have, which a lot of other information sources don't have. So this is a USP, a unique selling point, that you need to find a way to communicate very efficiently towards your visitors and towards potential visitors as well. Measuring emotional and social impacts, absolutely. Net Promoter Score, absolutely. I'm wondering whether you're working with these metrics already. If you like, you can also just in Zoom type in the chat if you would like to reflect on any of the discussions that we're having. If you prefer to type, that's also fine. And then looking at visibility, we also have quite some ideas for strategic actions here, like improving the visibility of the TIC in various policy domains and politics, and its strategic importance regarding destination development. Absolutely. When we look at tourism, tourism is a very interesting industry, because tourism policies span across various policy domains, as we know. So ranging from infrastructure through social welfare, through many other policy domains. And this often results in very fragmented policy outcomes or policies, which are really challenging to implement, really challenging, of course, to bring the various stakeholders together and to respond to the needs and wants, priorities of the different stakeholders. So indeed, how can we improve the visibility of the TIC across the various policy domains? It's a very important question. Using different channels to communicate, and not only social media, but using the municipality and other partners. Here it will be interesting to see later on what you mean by other partners and how other stakeholders could actually help you to improve the visibility of the TIC, and in what ways the municipality could help to improve the visibility of the TIC. Events, I see storytelling, advertising, yeah, digital word of mouth. It's also, maybe some of you would have some ideas. How can you measure verbal referrals? Of course, a lot of discussions, conversations take place at the TIC. We can measure conversion rate, we can measure referrals that take place online, of course, we can collect the data, but can you actually monitor the impact of the conversation you have with your visitors at the TIC? Do they actually follow up on the recommendations they received? Is there a way to measure verbal referrals? It's an interesting question, I believe, and many of the TICs are struggling with proving that all these verbal referrals, all these conversations have a very significant impact in terms of conversion. Let me move to other columns that we haven't quite discussed yet, and I'm just going to scan really quickly the input you have all provided.
I also see, for instance, the online chat with customers on websites. I think that's also, something important, that many of us, of course, are partly in the real world, partly in the virtual world, constantly looking at our cell phones. That's also a way, of course, to communicate and to directly interact with people. So, of course, there's the physical location. I think it's really important, physical contact with people, the face-to-face contact. But indeed, this online world, and how can you actually provide information there through a chat or through a place where people know to find you, that you can actually let people know that you can ask all sorts of questions to them. That's something also that's also what we see quite a lot, that also people are encouraged to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because if they ask questions, then you have this interaction moment. Then you can try to find out what is really the question and what is really their demand in order to make a tailor-made offer. And otherwise you might be in the position that you send out information, you don't know really what people actually demand. Sometimes there's a question behind the question. So this interaction, personal interaction, whether it's online or offline, that's something I think is really relevant, particularly the online area. And here's, of course, the question, but maybe some of you can reflect on that, maybe now or maybe later. Do you have enough resources, enough skills to do all this? Or do you depend on maybe collaboration with others? And if you have ideas how that collaboration should look like, yeah, that would be nice to share.
We have approximately 10 minutes to still add ideas to the first part of the mural. And one thing that I cannot quite see on the template yet would be the multifunctionality of the TIC. Maybe you remember in the presentation, we showed you this evolutionary path of the TIC and the ways many of the TICs are actually adding different services on top of information provision. So some TICs have evolved into and call themselves as inspiration centers or experience centers. What is your opinion on this multifunctionality of the TIC? Is it something that you see as a potential option for the future in Lithuania? Are there, as Stefan also emphasized, the resources, the skills, the capacity to change the layout, the services, the ambience at the physical TIC? Just to give you an example, there are some TICs that have included lounge areas in their physical TIC, where they invite the visitors to take a seat, to have a cup of coffee, to create this very warm and welcoming environment. Or, for instance, the TIC of Alkmaar here in the Netherlands decided to remove their physical desks. There are no counters, there are no desks where the visitors would need to queue or line up. Instead, the TIC employees just simply walk around in the TIC with a tablet in their hand. And on the tablet, they have all the information they need, and they can address the visitors in a much more personal way, instead of the visitors having to queue up at a counter or at a desk. So these are ideas as well that we have seen in other TICs, and it's something that would be interesting for TICs in Lithuania as well. Just some food for thought. I just see something really interesting it's under data collection, but it's really interesting. Attract visitors with no heard stories. Exactly. The TIC has the advantage of these hyper-local knowledge, very unique knowledge that is not, maybe is not shared or can be seen as off the beaten track or so. This can be something that can act as a unique selling point or an added value of the TIC. Absolutely. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I also see audit of media mentions. I think that's also very relevant to show the impact of your work, the reach, the outreach of your work. I think that's quite relevant also for funding, funding from public organizations, for instance. Of course, the bigger your reach, it's one of the impacts that you can measure. Indeed, the storytelling. I think the more local, the more authentic. Yeah, can you give people a real face? Can you show the people in your campaigns or information campaigns who actually deliver the experiences? something to think about.
I also, under the visitor experience, I added a sticky note with training. I think I haven't seen training of the TIC employees as a possible strategy to prepare them for the changing needs and wants of visitors. So I believe that training is crucial, and as we discussed earlier, also the soft skills, how to deal with people, how to respond, and similar aspects. Also, what would be interesting in terms of data collection is to understand how people interact with the destination. So do we actually know in what way the visitors use the destination, interact with the destination? Do we have that information? Because knowing this will, of course, help, first of all, to provide the right information, but also stories may emerge. Stories that can be used later on for promotional purposes, for instance, or to inspire other travelers. And of course, is it only, you know, the visitors' feedback that we want, or also maybe the local community, because they can also act as tourists in their own hometown, for instance. So we shouldn't forget this blurring line between residents and tourists. Residents can also be tourists in their own home environment. So do you actually pay attention to that? Do you try and gather information from how the locals see the destination? And do you use it in your activities? That's also an interesting question. What is the destination's core identity? You know, can you actually define this, what we call the destination DNA? That's really interesting. And in some cases, maybe it needs some revision or, you know, updating what really the destination identity is. And how do you want your visitors to see your destination? I think I've seen somewhere mobile information points. Like, can you actually use mobile information points to direct your visitors to the actual TIC? Can also be a strategic action, especially if your TIC is struggling with visibility. I would like to ask you to just add your last ideas to this part of the workshop, because in a few minutes we will go on a short break. However, MURAL will remain open. So if you'd like to just scan the ideas that have been shared, if you have additional ideas to contribute, please feel free to remain in the template and feel free to add more ideas to the template. What we're going to do with Stefan as well is we're going to scan the ideas, the inputs we'll try to provide just the first summary of the strategies, the actions that you believe are needed to be successful in a post-pandemic era, if you like, considering the transition from business as usual to business as unusual. And luckily, we will have a lot of input to work with, so that's absolutely great. Also, if you would like to just take a look at the sticky notes while you're maybe sipping a nice cup of coffee, you might already start thinking what resources you would need from other stakeholders and what tasks could be delegated to a newly established DMO. So after the break, those are the questions that we will be dealing with. So now, please feel free to take 20 minutes to grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And then we will be waiting for you here at, well, within 20 minutes. And then we will continue with the second part of the workshop.
Okay, thank you very much. Just we have now a break. It's a very silent workshop, but very interesting. So thanks, Bernadette. Thanks, Stefan. And let's go for a break and be back in 20 minutes, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks. I will hit the 20 minutes past already. So we would like to ask everyone to slowly return. We started, some of you left the MURAL template. So if you can just get back into the template by clicking on the link, that would be really good. So we can continue exploring the strategic actions, and not only that, but also what resources you as a TIC would need from other stakeholders to successfully implement the ideas that have been shared with regards to the 5 key areas of innovation. And then we would also like to explore what tasks or responsibilities could be potentially delegated to a newly established DMO. I believe that in the Zoom call, everybody is present, so you can all hear me. Because what we would like to start with actually is just a really quick recap of what has been shared so far. So the last 20 minutes, Stefan and I, we spent with just scanning the input in the MURAL templates to provide you with a brief overview on how you see the future of TICs and how you see the actions that are necessary for your respective TICs to become resilient, to become future-proof, and to remain relevant, of course, in the digital era. So I would like to start with just sharing this overview with you, and I would also like to initiate a conversation with you to see what you think of the outcomes so far. Maybe some reflections on some of the actions that are proposed by your colleagues. So the first strategic domain that we looked at was technology. Right, so when we look at the column with technology, we see quite some input, and what we can tell based on your insights is, first of all, ease of use will be more and more important. This also relates to customer efforts, of course. It's discussed already how important it is to be easily reachable, to be easily accessible in the digital era when visitors literally have most of the information in their back pocket on their smart devices. When it comes to technology, of course, it provides a lot of opportunities for interaction. So there were a few ideas shared on how to make use of the technology to provide more interactive experiences, not only in the physical TIC store, but also across the city, for instance, by installing certain interactive objects that visitors can engage with in different ways. Technology can, of course, help us with creating these interactive and immersive experiences. Then automation was mentioned as well, with regards to, for instance, the TIC website and how it would be important to integrate the TIC website with websites and platforms of other service providers as well as the municipality, so that information on the TIC website doesn't need to be manually updated, but all platforms should be integrated. In terms of technology, of course, it also provides us opportunity to pre-experience the destination. So providing interactive content online to motivate, to inspire the visitors is a great opportunity, of course, so that they can experience the destination before actually arriving. Real-time information, automatic translation, and so the use of basically artificial intelligence in general can also, of course, enhance the visitor experience very much. Then there was also a mentioning of a centralized platform. So instead of having to use many different applications, instead of having to subscribe or download many different applications, visitors could have one centralized platform that they could use across destinations and thereby facilitating a more seamless journey. So this could be an opportunity for the future, whether you see this happening within Lithuania or maybe across borders, which was an idea that came from European Cities Marketing and the TIC expert group. That, of course, depends very much, I would say, on the available resources, which we're going to discuss just in a few minutes. Then the second strategic domain that we looked at today was the visitor experience. Many of you emphasized inclusiveness. So when we talk about inclusiveness, we talk about various target groups, of course. People with different types of disabilities should also have access to the CI, should also be able to enjoy the experience provided with the use of various visual and sensory guides, for instance. And here again, we can reach back to technology and take inspiration from how technology is used to make experiences more inclusive. Then we can also talk about specific groups within the community. So working with the elderly, working with youth, also seeing the residents themselves as very important stakeholders. For instance, you can look at them as consumers themselves. So they often act as tourists in their own home destination. They can also be producers as local entrepreneurs. And the TIC is very well positioned to showcase local producers, local products, to showcase the destination DNA. But the local community can also be seen as ambassadors and can collaborate with the TIC as ambassadors, and they can help to really provide hyper-local knowledge about a destination. Learning from others that I found really interesting when we talk about immersive experiences, indeed, you can learn a lot from attractions, other sites that provide immersive visitor experiences, and you as the TIC can, of course, learn and gain insights from these attractions in terms of how they implement such immersive experiences. So the learning and knowledge exchange here is absolutely crucial. Then when it comes to experiences, mentionings were made about personalization of the experience, of course, the use of storytelling as a really crucial tool. We talked about multifunctionality as well, going beyond information provision, moving more towards having a so-called experience center or inspiration center with, for instance, dedicated lounge areas where visitors can just hang out and enjoy the ambience. And in terms of the experience, it's also to a large extent about the employees of the TIC. The employees are the heart of the TIC. So it's really important that there's continuous development, talent development, so to say, not only about knowledge itself, but also soft skills. Just to give you some examples of what we mean by soft skills. So communication skills, conflict resolution, problem solving skills, empathy, assertiveness, listening skills. Very important to be able to listen to what the visitors actually need. Self-control. Sometimes there might be difficult situations, so self-control is absolutely crucial. Also a sense of humor, right? Flexibility, leadership, time management, confidence. So there's a range of soft skills that are really important in today's world to develop very meaningful relationships between the TIC and the visitors, but it can also be the TIC and the residents. In terms of collaboration, many of you mentioned the importance of the private sector. I'm working with the private sector very closely. Also the collaboration between the private and public sector. And for us, it's very interesting, and we would really like to know more about the way you see this collaboration, and maybe if there are improvement points in that sense. Of course, collaboration with the community itself in the form of, for instance, ambassador programs or volunteer programs. Collaboration with platform services like Airbnb and similar services. Airbnb, as we know, doesn't only offer accommodation, but also experiences. So also the question arises, like, is there quality control? You as a TIC are responsible for providing quality information and trustworthy information. How can you ensure that your partners do also provide trustworthy quality information? So quality control, I think, is absolutely crucial there. And we talked about regional collaboration across TICs, but potentially also cross-border collaboration across TICs. And with the third sector, so knowledge institutions, universities, innovation hubs, like what we are doing today is a really good example of how knowledge institutions or universities can actually contribute towards the development, the evolution of TICs, and how we can share ideas with each other. And last but not least, teaching other stakeholders. The TICs are very well positioned. They have in-depth knowledge of the destination. Can you transfer this knowledge and teach, for instance, other stakeholders about how to represent the destination the best possible way? Moving on to data, measuring the service quality is absolutely crucial. It was mentioned on the template as well. And we talked a lot about the shifts from purely looking at numbers and economic metrics, shift towards more the social value, the emotional value, and the experience value. Are there ways to measure this? Because the essence of the Tourist Information Center really lies in human interaction, human connections. There were some examples mentioned about panel surveys and some metrics like the Net Promoter Score or Customer Effort Score, or there's also the Employee Satisfaction Scores. There are a lot of scores that you can measure and you can monitor. Of course, very much depends on your resources as well. Moving on to the last domain is visibility. The TIC's visibility across the policy domains, that was a very interesting point, I thought, and it would be really good to discuss about the way the TIC is linked to the municipality and the collaboration there, and how maybe it can be optimized, and the strategic importance of the TIC across the policy domains, how it can be optimized. Tourism marketing integrated with the overall marketing of the area, of the destination, to make the TIC more visible. Audit of media mentions. And again, with the visibility, I would like to mention the customer effort score. So for you to know whether your visibility is optimal, you need to understand how much effort visitors need to make to find your TIC or to find the information that they're looking for. So this was just a very brief overview what we could, do in 20 minutes in the coffee break. But I would be very interested in your opinion and your reflection on what I just shared with you. For instance, which domain would you feel should have a priority, or which domain do you feel you should focus on? And how do you see the actions or strategies that are suggested at this point? And maybe I can invite Lydia to share some thoughts just to get the conversation going. I'm not sure if Lydia, you can hear us, but if you do, it would be really great if you could reflect just briefly on the outcomes of the first exercise. Or if anybody else feels like speaking up, please feel free to do so. If anybody would like to just speak up and reflect a little bit on either the 5 areas or any of the actions that you feel should have a priority in terms of taking action. Visibility of the TIC. Yeah, I do agree that it's absolutely crucial. You need to be found. You need to be accessible. You need to be visible. Absolutely, that's where it all starts. I do agree. May I ask, Joanna, I'm sorry about the pronunciation. May I ask how you see the current situation and what aspect of visibility should be optimized based on your experience? There you are.
Hello.
Hi.
So why I think we should start from the visibility, because, well, technology and visitor experience in the TIC is, of course, very crucial. But if nobody knows about it, that it exists, that it can have different services available and so on, it doesn't matter really.
Right.
We can be the best possible, but if no one comes to us, it's basically nothing. So that's why I think that we should advertise about the places like this, and what are the possibilities to get what you need. And another point, I think there is like a stereotype that tourism information center is only for the tourists, but locals as well can have different services that can be useful for them as well. And they can also be tourists in their destination.
What is your opinion about the visibility of TICs in maybe in Vilnius, if I see it right? Like, what is the current situation? Do you believe there's need to optimize?
Optimize visibility? Or...
Yes. Yeah.
I think there is always ways to grow, and finding new ways to be visible and using other platforms, not only your own, but also communicate with different partners, the municipality, being the channel for the information of different projects, events, and so on. So you can build collaborations with different partners, and they can also mention on their channels that you can get all of this information in the TIC, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we are also back to the topic of collaboration and integration. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your views. Thank you. Right, and Utrius mentioned that we need to understand what the customers want to see and what they want to do, and then decide about the channels. Utrius, may I invite you to speak up and explain a little bit more about your ideas?
Yes, it's sorry for my my ideas. It's a very simple situation. We have so much money for advertisements, especially with the big countries, and never ever. For example, if we see how much spend money Spain, Greece, Turkey for advertisements, we never ever have this money. So you must very know your customers. It means, for example, here are customers, partners from Vilnius, and is it okay? You have maybe customers, but from Vilnius they say it okay. Maybe we can to invite more people, but they don't know customers. It's really they don't know customers and what they have. For example, they did 2 advertisement companies and both companies not work. They don't get more customers. So problem is that you must not know what the customers like it, from which region they coming, what they want to see, what they want to do, and something like that. So it's very important for advertisements. This means, for example, if you don't need, if you don't have so much money, you can, you must very know clear. For example, if you have very interesting object, which is interesting, for example, only for people which interesting railways, you can offer this advertisement only for railways. Means if you have people which are interesting for forest, you can advertise only for forest. You must, in this case, you can save money and you can see more visibilities or something like that. So this my idea is very clear.
Absolutely, absolutely. May I ask what means or tools you have currently to learn about your customers?
Usually it's very good that you can use Facebook because it's, you know, from each regions this customers they looking. For example, we are just our tourism information service just started. I see that mainly our customers are only from region or region. So it means we must invite people from Kaunas and Marijampolė very close. And this means you must say for these customers, the customers are with families, of course. They speak in the Lithuanian language, of course, and it means your auditorium must be from 25, maximum 45. So in this, it's very clear auditorium which you can send this message. So it's very simple. So we can use now Facebook. It's very simple, and for future maybe we can do other advertisements, for example, press, for example, TV shows. But when you don't have so much money, you can do very smart decisions. So it's not so easy, but we can do it. Yeah.
In order to optimize your data collection, right? You know your customers better.
Yeah.
Do you feel you would need additional support, maybe skills, use of specific softwares that would allow you to collect data much more efficiently?
It's not so easy to speak with this solution. For example, what I see, what we can do, it's Lithuania is a small market. If you see, for example, Germany, they have so many special tools which can help for check customers' needs, something like that. For Lithuania, it's a small, small market for made special programs which I can use for checking customers' needs. So not so easy. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas and insights. Before I hand over to Stefan and then we move to the next second part, I see that Ruta shared her insights as well, and I think it very much overlaps with what we just discussed. Knowing the market, knowing the visitors, and having insights enough so that you can decide which market to prioritize, which market to focus on. Maybe this overlaps a little bit with the discussion of quality tourists. Who do you really want to have and who do you really want to attract? Not only in terms of being, satisfied with whatever market you attract, but also trying to influence a little bit and attract the type of tourists that will bring revenue, that will have the right attitude, the right type of interest in the city. So absolutely knowing the market, knowing the visitors, and having the right tools to collect that information and the resources is absolutely crucial. And that links in with the second part of the workshop, focusing on resources and task allocation and support and so on.
Yes, thank you very much, Betty, for the great summary. Yeah, let's move to the second part of this workshop. Of course, we depend again on your input. We will move to the right-hand side of the MURAL template. So if you would zoom out, go to the right-hand side, you will see that there's a step 2, which is about the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization, and other stakeholders, as we call it, because we would like to learn about your opinion. What tasks could you delegate or could you appoint to a DMO? And here I'd like to emphasize the difference between a TIC and a DMO. So as I said, the DMO, their main responsibility in its very basic form is to get visitors from outside of an area towards a destination. Of course, you can think about this evolution that we showed earlier in the presentation, that it's much more nowadays also about meeting and balancing different interests, not only about marketing, but also about management and even product development. So playing a really active role. And I think this also links into what Bernadette just mentioned. Yeah, that we might need to collaborate in this sense, and that you might need to have a collective idea or strategy on the entire visitor economy, as we call it. Here the question is, of course, whose responsibility is this to take the lead, for instance, developing a future vision? Is this a DMO or is this a national tourism organization? It depends very much, of course, on the local situation. So in your country, how this is organized and how these responsibilities are divided. We would like to take time to look at particularly the role of a DMO and to ask you to list different tasks you would allocate to a DMO. And I think it's nice to think about what additional activities, what additional tasks or complementary tasks we should allocate to a DMO. And think about the earlier discussion we had about TICs. I think we have a great overview of what we would like to allocate to TICs, what we think they should do. But next to this, we have a different type of organization. And what are your thoughts about this? What are your opinions? And maybe you have you have ideas. Also, you see different 3 different other columns about the public sector. So the national, regional, and local level, municipalities, city councils, the tourism business organizations or business associations, and the third sector, so the non-governmental organizations, universities, etc. If you have ideas about their possible role, please fill it in as well. But let's try to focus as much as possible on the DMO. And if you have, if you want to have a conversation about this, if you have ideas, if you like to open your mic, please do so, because maybe that's helpful as well to talk about this. Maybe you have doubts about what the DMO should do, or that you're maybe very enthusiastic about the role of DMO.
Stefan, may I jump in?
Sure.
Really quickly, because I'm looking at the chat, and Monica shared a very important insight and point indeed about not having enough resources. And, not having enough resources, of course, suggests that collaboration is incredibly important. And also, I would say, maybe delegation of tasks. And that's how we arrive at, looking at a possible newly established DMO and the roles that those organizations could take over from the TIC, thereby also reducing maybe the pressure on your available resources, would maybe allow for better use of resources. And I don't know if Monica, if I may invite you to unmute your mic and maybe just elaborate on this further. That would be wonderful. While the others are working in the template.
Hi.
Hi.
So just following the message that they posted on Zoom, I also added a couple of sticky notes on MURAL because I really believe that DMOs or the TICs should really focus on connecting different stakeholders. First, finding them in the area, then connecting them and facilitating the cooperation among them, because TICs and maybe future DMOs are going to be really small organizations, like 5 people up to 10 people. We have even smaller TICs in Lithuania, like 2 or 3 people. Of course, they can never be so good in marketing or technology innovations and working on visibility and cooperation in all these different areas. So I really believe it's about finding your partners, finding public sector institutions, finding businesses, finding local volunteers, maybe local alumni of the area, and all these different groups of people that can really help spread the message about the area and also help to work with its visibility and progress and so on.
And currently this task is not something you could allocate to a TIC. You need additional.
I believe that TICs could transform into DMOs that could then do this, all these things. I don't think it's about delegating, it's about transforming your own institution and your own methods of that you employ.
Do you have any ideas about the roles of public sector, private sector? How can they support such a transformation? I actually like that word very much. Or is it something that is from within let's say a TIC to address this and then move on?
Well, I believe that the initiative should probably come from the public sector, because they are usually the owners of the TICs, at least at the moment in Lithuania. But then the TICs and the public sector should also turn to the private sector and try to learn from it and involve them in the initiatives that are being implemented. Try to show that it's not only up to the government and government-owned TICs to do the marketing of the city or to create like tourist attractions and so on, that they can be done together with the private sector and finding ways to cooperate on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So it's about take initiative, but not telling what to do, but that someone needs to get this networking and strategic thinking going. Yeah.
Maybe we can link the question of Jurgutis to what Monica was saying as well. The question is about an example of a DMO where they work successfully. And I would like to bring maybe the example of Amsterdam and Partners. They are a public-private organization, which gives them a very strong lobbying power. So they are this connecting pin between the public sector and the private sector. As we know, the interests, the priorities of the two sectors can be quite different. And they both have, of course, a very strong voice, also the private sector. And so a DMO can be very well positioned to find a balance between the needs and wants of the public and private sector and the community as well. So they can be an organization that represents interests of the various stakeholder groups. And in that sense, the TIC is then really the face of the DMO, the linking pin to the visitors, the very important contact moment in the customer journey. So Amsterdam and Partners, I think, can be a good example, and it's a good example of how the DMO can have a very strong position to balance the needs and interests of the various stakeholders in a destination. Also, another example, they were invited by the local municipality to work on a vision document for 2025 for the city of Amsterdam and for the metropolitan region. And this vision document is very unique in the sense that it builds on insights from the public sector, the private sector, the community, so that DMO managed to bring all these stakeholders together to create the vision for the destination for the coming 5 years. And because it's based on shared interests, it is more likely that the vision will be implemented according to plans and will be implemented successfully. So that's one example I could give.
I think one of their success factors is also their lobby activities or their network activities. They spend a lot of time establishing relationships, keeping relationships, to be involved in this stakeholder network. I think this links into what Monica just mentioned. But this takes a lot of time. You need to get the resources to do all of that. So actually, a CEO, for instance, of the DMO, is constantly working on this, building this network, aligning ideas, finding partners, and then you have a rest of the organization to do more of the content. And I think this is a type of the more complex the work gets in tourism. I think this is the type of movement we will see, but also the dependency on other organizations increases. If it's if the task is to do marketing, that's something you can do as an organization yourself. If you're responsible, or you feel you're responsible for destination management, to do beyond stuff, beyond marketing and promotion, well, then you depend on a city council, infrastructure department, the public transportation department. You need to get on board, and of course, you need to do your own strategic storytelling. What do you actually want of them? What is your and do they agree with us? So there's a lot of work to do. But of course, I think already what Monica mentioned, this is a collaborative action, most likely. But maybe you have different opinions. I see that there is a comment in one of the sticky notes. If there will be a DMO, how does that relate to Lithuania.travel? I'm not sure who put that sticky note in, but that's an interesting remark.
Can we invite maybe the author of the sticky note?
Yes, please. That would be perfect to learn more.
Can you read it out, Stefan? Maybe what's on the note, and then it's easier to recognize the.
Yes, the sticky note says, if there will be a DMO, what to do, or what will we do with Lithuania.travel? I'm worried about competition between the different companies. Or maybe someone else can reflect on this comment. Most likely, this is something that is probably more widespread discussion.
Sorry, what this means? I mean that if I understand that DMO must be biggest company, including maybe some regions companies, like maybe it will be 4 DMO in Lithuania. They will be doing the same job like Lithuania.travel. It means make advertisement, make something like that. So it will be they will be doing finally do the same jobs like in the Lithuania traveling, advertisement Lithuania, but small regions, they'll see. So that's worried about these questions.
Yeah, I think it's a relevant point, definitely a relevant point. In many countries, they make a difference between a national tourism organization, the NTO, and a destination marketing organization, the DMO. So often it is the responsibility of a national tourism organization to get people towards a country and do kind of the branding of an entire country. And a DMO is more responsible on the destination, so on the destination level. So let's say a city or a region within a country. And of course, there could be differences in approach. And at the same time, often an NTO is funded by a ministry, for instance. A DMO is funded by a local a city council or a municipality or a province or a regional public sector stakeholder. Yes, there will be tensions. And at the same time, it is increasing the capacity. And I think that's something that is relevant to mention, because also a national tourism organization probably cannot do everything. they have to make their own strategic choices in line with political ambitions. Well, political ambitions can differ very much on a national level compared to a regional level. I think that's something we need to weigh in these discussions, particularly if funding comes from a public sector organization. Hopefully that answers the question or tries to address the question. So I see that there's activity on MURAL. Let me look at the post-its. That's very much about collaboration, gathering local knowledge, to lobby, to represent stakeholders. And a question, more a general question. Of course, tourism is also in competition with other economic sectors. If we talk about the resources, particularly from the public sector, maybe someone can reflect on the importance of the industry in policy making. This is something that in many countries it's sometimes really evident. We depend on tourism. Let's say Spain, Italy, kind of traditional destinations. But in many other countries, especially at the regional level, it's not evident. It's a minor industry or a small industry, or the impact is not recognized as such. It's only like jobs. But what about the social impacts in terms of infrastructures? So sometimes the political support or the policy support could be rather limited. If someone can reflect on this, I think that would help as well.
Shall I?
Yes, please. Yes, if you can.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It's quite challenging for Lithuania to put tourism into priority areas of our economy. We did it several times, like I think 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and we're fighting. We're fighting because our aim is to show to our government that tourism plays a really very important role in economy. But it's really not so easy, and always we are on the second stage somewhere, not on the first stage. But what I'm thinking about social situation, as you see, we have really many participants today, and our municipalities create tourism information centers. Tourism information centers has beautiful staff, very active staff, interesting staff, and of course we're turning tourism around and trying to show that it's really important for our economy. Of course, this pandemic put us down again, and we need to recover, we need to think, we need, of course, to do some transformation in our business model, in our planning. That's why we are here. So let's see, but this government didn't put tourism into priority areas in program of 2 years or 4 years program, sorry. So we will see how we should prove that we are really in a big importance and that we are powerful. Of course, this summer, maybe this pandemic show importance of local tourism very much. So let's see, maybe people will recognize, will discover Lithuania once again and our country itself. So very strong. Thank you.
If I can ask a question about the policy attention, is there from the industry, from maybe the TICs or the network of TICs, an active lobby? So is this organized well enough? Because if I can, from experience, typically, the visitor economy is very diverse and also quite fragmented and organized. And you have like the HOTRAC, for instance, a hotel network organization. We have a leisure organization. We have a campsite organization. We have all of these different associations, and they all do their own lobby, but not as a collective. So yeah, then you lose connection. How is that in Lithuania?
Oh, thank you very much. It's a very good question. Our business do lobby very much and very strong. Tourism information centers It's public institution, mostly it's public institution. Of course, they are dependent on us, but we do lobbying as well. But making every lobby is my opinion. You should show concrete figures and to prove that yes, we are, and we are really on this way. And for several years we are fighting and lobbying, and maybe not so strong, but really this process is active.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but let me, as far as we have no speakers, let me turn our discussion back a little bit to DMOs. We had no DMOs in Lithuania, as far as I remember. There was one private initiative like 15 years ago. It was good, it was active. What we did, we organized a special tour for French people, French tour operators, and we organized one-day visit Lithuania. It was a plane from Paris to Vilnius, direct one, charter. It was very nice reception, and we showed several cities. It was Vilnius, Trakai, and gala reception in one of the most beautiful hotels of Lithuania. And our former president made a welcome speech to French tour operators, so it was very good. So it was really very, very strong initiative, but one of them. Later, we expected maybe more private companies to create demos and to do it, but it's still not clear. And I am listening to questions of my colleagues of tourism information centers. Really, I think we should clarify more and should spend more time on analyzing maybe good examples of different demos, and say also advantages and disadvantages. Is it Travel Lithuania? Is it TIC? Is it demos? And what's advantages and maybe good things for Lithuanian tourism. So that is why I think it's not promoted. This idea of demos is not very well promoted in Lithuania so far.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. As I see a comment, I think it's Eva, could TICs become DMOs by themselves? Why some new organizations should be established, or maybe TICs disappear if DMO will be established in a regional level? Who should establish those DMOs? I think it's, hopefully I pronounce your name correctly, Eva. Could you, yes, could you elaborate a bit on this comment? Or do you have ideas whether a TIC could transform itself into a DMO? Because if I look at the presentation I gave at the start, we see that TIC sometimes is part of the responsibility of a DMO.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can.
Thank you. So I don't know, I have questions. So maybe Lydia has some answers, or maybe some colleagues of mine. But it's maybe fears from our side. Will we be useful? What will we do in TICs if DMO will be established? Lithuania is not so big country, so if every municipality has a TIC, not every, but many of the municipalities has TIC. So the DMO maybe can connect to 5 or 7 municipalities. So what will do TICs? Why should we transfer some our responsibilities if we can cover them by ourselves? Why? What is the meaning of this additional organization in not a very big country? Maybe if the destination management would be built on some special destinations or some special themes. For example, the a Baltic theme or sea theme or something else what is very special in our country, but we have such an initiative, informal maybe initiatives, or our common initiatives between some regional TICs. So what would this additional new organization or 10 organizations in Lithuania, what would they do different and what would they do more?
Yeah, I think definitely relevant questions. Also, what we try to address with the MURAL, to find out your ideas, what the value could be, the additional value of a DMO, and whether that is in terms of organizational structure, a follow-up on a TIC or a collaborative action of a set of TICs. I think that's something that's for later, but what do you want them to do? What is the additional added value of such a of such an organization? And I think many of the sticky notes are about this connectivity between stakeholders, to create a vision for a destination. So a bit more on I guess a strategic level about the destination. And normally those types of strategies include, okay, but who do we need? Who are our partners? Who are is going to co-invest in reaching those goals and aims? Typically, that's something a DMO does.
I think it's very interesting to explore how you see this potential newly established DMO, because as we mentioned in the presentation as well, there's no recipe. There's no one way to establish a DMO. If you look at the legal status, there are various forms. It can be part of a city administration, can be part of a regional government, can be an industry association, it can be in the form of an independent management organization. So it can be public-private, like the example of Amsterdam. So it really has to be context specific and has to be based on the needs of the local stakeholders, including, of course, the TICs, including the local municipality, business associations or organizations. So it really depends on what you believe would work best for your destination. So that's why it's really interesting to hear your different perspectives. And also in terms of the strategic functions DMOs could take on. As we said earlier in the presentation, they do various things. They do city marketing. They are often a convention bureau as well. They do research. They collect data. They are involved with destination development, visioning, strategic projects, a lot of different tasks that they can take based on what we see across Europe. So the question is, what would work best for your country?
So, and also I think it's more about the tasks, the things that you want to have additionally, instead of thinking about organizational structures and who's going to take over what. I think that's a discussion that you could have for later. First, it's about what could be the added value, and think about we have maybe problems or urgencies or opportunities that we see now that we cannot address in the current, organizational structure. But I think Monica wants to make a contribution here. Can I give the floor to you?
Yes, I just wanted to react to what Lydia said. I was really surprised by her words that we don't have DMOs in Lithuania yet, because I think saying that, it kind of, where is that line between TIC and DMO? Like, it's more about evolution, about adding functions. I don't think there is a strict line. That's what TICs do and that's what DMOs do. I think there are quite a few organizations in Lithuania that are somewhere in between or moving towards DMOs already. So I think we should try to identify the best practices and see what functions they should work on even more, or what best practices we can employ in other TICs so that they move forward towards DMOs more efficiently and so on. And I think that's what we are trying to do here now in MURAL. So I would suggest not to say that we don't have DMOs at all. We have some organizations that already have some experience that is about all the things that we are discussing today. That would probably help all of us to kind of feel that we are already in it, not some new organizations are going to be established.
I think that's a good nuance to make here. Thank you.
I see a very interesting remark in the chat section about the TIC ecosystem. And Vincas, may I invite you to elaborate on this further and how you see this TIC ecosystem functioning?
Maybe also its near future.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be great.
And then maybe also in response to Monica's insights, instead of reinventing the wheel, how can we build on what is already there, what is already working well?
So just a short reaction what Monica just said. I mean that there is no official DMOs, or we don't know. We have received no official letter. So I'm talking about, there are some similar companies. It could be, but I'm talking about official data. So it was a statement just for all you to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Yeah, I was wondering if Vincas, if you would like to elaborate on the TIC ecosystem idea, which sounds very interesting to explore further, or maybe anyone else would like to reflect on that. Right. In the meantime, we will also take a quick look at MURAL, because there are more and more ideas popping up in the template, which can give us ideas for further discussion. So I'll just need a second to scan it really quickly. I'm not sure if Stefan, you have additional impressions.
Yes, as he comments, for instance, on the integrated tourism policy making, that's something that is key. And I think this is something that goes beyond information provision. We're also trying to think about what do you actually want this industry to contribute to what type of societal goals or sustainable development goals, well-being goals. Then it becomes quite strategic. This is put under the public sector because it makes sense. It's normally a public sector responsibility also to make choices between different interests. Yeah, that's interesting. And indeed, this depends obviously on the political support. I think that's what we discussed earlier.
Yeah, there's another, I think, absolutely very important remark from Vincas about human and monetary resources. Absolutely crucial, of course, regardless of what type of innovation we're talking about or what type of development. You cannot do without the available resources. Of course, then the question arises, where should these resources come from? Who is in the position to provide these resources, to take the lead? I think leadership is also really important. Who allocates the resources? How can this be influenced? Yeah.
I think also something to consider if you talk about human resources, a way to train and upskill people, to collaborate also with research institutes, vocational institutes, and sometimes it's even possible to get funding from there or to apply together with public sector, private sector, third sector for funding. Even at EU level, those types of possibilities are possible, but again, it requires already resources to apply for that. But we see this, for instance, I mean, it's a bit of a sidestep, but within our university, we have several of these collaborations with industry, government, and education. We call this the triple helix, and sometimes additional organizations are part of this. And we try to collaborate. And often funding comes from the different organizations, or it's already from existing programs. And often actually the money that's from education is often additional.
Maybe I can add to what you just said, Stefan. Another example which I would like to share with you, and maybe some of you are doing this already in terms of education. What we do in our program, we create projects in collaboration with industry partners. One example, I can give you two examples actually. This year, we worked in collaboration with the TIC expert group of European Cities Marketing. The year before, we worked in collaboration with the Knowledge Network of Dutch DMOs. And what we did, we invited these tourist information centers to participate in a project that was conducted by a group of master students. We asked these TICs what their interest is, what are their issues, what project they would be interested in participating. And so our students in the program conducted the research, brought up very appealing reports, very interesting findings. They interviewed TIC experts from across Europe. And so it was a win-win situation, because for our students, these are incredibly valuable learning experiences. And for the TIC, this is new available knowledge based on scientific evidence, based on data. And so it's sort of a free exchange of knowledge and ideas and insights. So it was absolutely valuable for our students, and it was very valuable for the TICs themselves, because they got new knowledge, new insights, new ideas. It was readily available for them. So maybe you want to consider such cooperations with universities in Lithuania and take part in such projects, which can be, I think, very valuable for all parties involved. So that's just an example of how knowledge institutions, universities can actually work with you. And you don't need a lot of resources. You just need some time to invest in talking to the students participating in some workshops, and in return, you can gain quite a lot, I would say. It worked very well in our case. Yeah.
I also think we're quite near the end of our workshop. I think time is ticking by very quickly. We would like to invite you, of course, to put as many ideas as possible on the mural. I think we will keep it open also after this workshop, because the output reports will do after this session, of course. So I think we'll keep it open for also the rest of the day. So if you have ideas that come to mind, don't hesitate to write them down also after this workshop. If I can give the floor to someone with a final remark, or that you want us to take into account certain remarks, say you should not forget this, maybe beyond the questions we've asked so far, this is a time to inform us. Please do not hesitate to open your mic and tell us. I think during the second part of this workshop, we already summarized, I think, the biggest or the main points. I think particularly collaboration, more strategic thinking about destination development is something that's relevant. I think the core issue, I think, was addressed just now about the resources, human resources and funding. If we have more ambitions, if we take on more tasks, where does this money come from? I think this is a struggle everywhere and part of the ongoing debate. Something might even be a role then for, again, universities, something we do, for instance, that we help out the industry to think about what is the societal relevance of tourism and recreation, a project we did quite recently to help out the industry, to help out DMOs, to show other stakeholders what the value actually is, and that it goes beyond jobs, turnover, but that the impact is actually much wider, and you need to recognize that as well. Some organizations make use of COVID then as a strategic situation to emphasize that there's much more value than just these economic factors only. Then you make use, of course, of the crisis situation. Now it has become very apparent if a large part of the industry overnight disappears, you can see where certain problem areas emerge. And also think about indeed youth and a connection to the labor market, for instance, the facilities, also the companies that depend on companies within the tourism industry. So it's direct employment, indirect employment. That's things that we see now. And also there, yeah, you even can maybe notice bankruptcies or companies that struggle. So it's about the value chain. And I think this value chain has become very clear in during the period of COVID.
Right. We do have a few more minutes, so we'll see if anybody would like to just reflect on the work that's been done today. What you can expect from us is an output report based on the discussions and, of course, based on the input that was shared in the MURAL template. We need a week or two to summarize the outcomes, also to add to this our own knowledge and experience from the projects we've done before. So we are really aiming to provide you with a very comprehensive report that you can use for your own strategic planning, and you can use also in the conversations or discussions about whether there should be a DMO, whether it should be a newly established organization, or maybe something that builds on the existing TIC ecosystem. And maybe you should look at how you can transform the existing environment and allocate or reallocate certain tasks and responsibilities. Also in terms of resource provision, there are some very burning questions there, I believe. Right. Well, on behalf of ETBI, we would like to thank you all for your participation, for sharing your insights and input. We are very grateful, and we do hope that you found the exercise interesting and stimulating most of all. Our aim was to ask some critical questions to get you in the thinking process. Normally through these collaborative processes, some new ideas emerge, and we already see some very interesting things emerging from the template. So you will get all the output in the form of a report very soon. Right, I'm not sure if Lydia, you would like to say a few final words? Yeah.
Yes, thank you really very much, dear Stefan, dear Bernadette. It was interesting, it was new, and we've been waiting very much for it, because all future, when we're talking about future, is always interesting for everybody. What I would like to say that it was interesting, it was interactive, and the first part, as I told, it was very silent. We were, making stickers, putting notes, but I found it interesting. I don't know what about our audience, but we will receive a reflection. Hope, and we look forward very much for your output report, because Vice Minister told it's a pity he should be leaving for another meeting, but he's waiting very much also, because it's crucial and interesting for us, because now we have time of uncertainty and nobody knows how to act. Okay, so in Lithuania, we're trying to be very punctual always. So it's 1 o'clock, it's lunchtime. And thank you really very much for all speakers, for Stefan, for Bernadette. Thank you very much for all participants. Dėkoju visiems, and hope to see us next time somewhere, and we can maybe give you some questions if we have, or maybe someone would like to study at your university and to improve knowledge about tourism, because Netherlands now is top country for Lithuanian students, one of the top countries to study. Thank you very much. Viso gero, dėkoju visiems, and see you next time.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, everyone. Thank you.